to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Mike Bair, the Director of Athletics at Dixie High School in St. George, Utah. Welcome to the podcast, Big Bear.
Well, welcome, Hutch. Glad to be here.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our international audience where you grew up, where you went to school, college, your first job, etc.
All that's fun stuff. I'll start real quick. I was born in Rexburg, Idaho. Moved to Wyoming. My dad moved there, and I'll say this really fast. My dad was the first wrestling coach at Rick's College in Idaho. He started the wrestling program there way back when, and as a head football coach back in the day. But anyway, got out of coaching, went to Wyoming, raised in Wyoming on a cattle ranch, northern Wyoming called Lovell, little small school up on the Montana border. After high school, played sports, football, basketball, and track, right through the shot and disc, and had fun doing that all through high school in a small school. Only 66 kids in our graduating class at the time. I graduated in 1983. Walked on at BYU football in 1983 at just simple walk-on practice where they invite many kids to come on, and was able to make the team. I had a little bit of edge because my dad and Coach Edwards coached together as grad assistants at BYU when my dad was getting his master's degree there. So him and Coach Edwards were grad assistants back in the day, and a few little stories there. I could go in detail about that, but I won't get in this area. But anyway, made the football team that year. BYU had a JV program. I was just a scrub for them, but got to play in all the JV football games, and that was a lot of fun. Served a mission, LDS mission to Oakland, California back in 84, 85. After my mission, came back in 86, played that year at BYU in 86. And then as I was getting my degree in health education, sports, driver's education, and gerontology, have a minor in that. But anyway, in 87, I redshirted, and I was playing stupid football, pickup basketball. I think basketball players do dumb things. They play basketball, and it's pretty rough. But anyway, ruined my left ankle, met my wife, and realized there's more life than football at that point. But had to get on with life and move on from there. But anyway, graduated BYU finally in 92. Got my job here at Dixie High School in 92 as a full-time driver's ed teacher back in the day when we taught driver's ed during the day. And then coached assistant football coach, assistant track coach at the time, and doing driver's ed. And as we all know, as educators, just trying to save as much money as we can and live as much as we can on a teacher salary and coaching salary. But been at Dixie High School ever since then. I had opportunities to go to Idaho and those type of things, but came down to St. George. My wife's from Teton Valley, Idaho. At the time, we had just one small child, a baby girl, and Brianna Teddy Bear was her name, and there is her name, and then we had Dakota Black Bear and Aspen Honey Bear and Kara Cinnamon Bear. So those are all the bears that are here in St. George, Utah. We have fun with our name, obviously, but anyway, have been having a great experience here at Dixie High. In 2002, we had some changes in our athletic department here at Dixie High School. Our at that time athletic director decided to take a new path in his role and and whatever he was going to do. And so Craig Hammer, which is very well known throughout the state, I approached him, said, "Hey, I'd love to be the athletic director at the time." and I was coaching football at the time and that sort of thing. But anyway, long story short, he let me have that job. As it goes, I was part-time teacher slash athletic director, continued teaching health education and driver's ed until, so that's '02 until '09. And then in Washington County School District, they made some changes. And here in our district where they had administrators become athletic directors. And so I already had my administration degree. And so I jumped on that and they hired me as continue on as athletic director slash vice principal. So I've been doing that since '09 till now. So I just finished up my 33rd year here at Dixie High School, 22 years as the athletic director here at Dixie High School. My wife wants me to quit this very moment, but I plan on going 1 year for sure, and then we'll see after that. I'm thinking at least two, but we'll see what goes on. So, any athletic directors out there looking at jobs who have their admin endorsement want my job at Dixie, I can maybe start looking at that in the next year or two. So, anyway.
That is awesome. And so you grew up, well, your younger years in Rexburg, then went to
Yeah, so
Northern
actually,
Wyoming.
yeah, I was only there very short couple of years back in those days. They came to my dad and said, "You got to either choose football or wrestling." And how's politics goes in athletics, sometimes he got upset and was not making much money anyway at Rick's College. So he took a job back east in Maryland and went back and coached, head wrestling coach in Maryland, Rockville Community College and assistant football. Lasted there for a couple of years. Then we went back to a little stint in Idaho. Then, but most all my years from kindergarten all the way through high school were in Lovell, Wyoming. So that's where I was raised. So,
All right.
you
So
know,
for those that are on the East Coast and not as familiar with Wyoming as I am, be more specific about where Lovell is, as
so
it's close to
Lovell,
a town
yeah,
they might know.
no, no. So Lovell is beautiful country, northern Wyoming. So if you know where Cody, Wyoming, I always say
Right.
we're on east east entrance of Yellowstone Park. So we're an hour, probably 10-minute drive to the east entrance of park, the Yellowstone Park. Beautiful country. It's called the Bighorn Basin area. It's where the last settlement of Brigham Young sent saints. So a lot of my mom's family went up there and settled that part of Wyoming, and my grandpa had a ranch there, which my dad got out of education, which is a kind of a tongue in cheek. He probably would have, if he would have stayed in education, he probably would have had a lot better retirement. But scratching out ranching in northern Wyoming is not it's very rewarding in terms of work ethic and that sort of thing. But when it comes to financial stuff, it's not the greatest in the world. But great place
So
to raise a family. It's still the same as it's always been. Not a lot of movement in terms of buying and selling stuff up in that area, but great place, good people in that part of the country.
Lovell then west of Cody on your way to the
Yeah.
east entrance.
Yeah, west of
Okay.
Dakota, and it's 90 miles south of Billings.
Okay.
So yeah, we fly home or drive. When we fly home, either fly into Cody, Wyoming, or Billings, Montana, and then drive down to Lovell. But in fact, I was just there this past weekend. My parents have now passed, so my brother and I had to go up and check on the ranch and make sure that everything's okay, getting ready for the spring stuff. But we have good neighbors that take care of things for us.
So how far is Gillette then? The other direction? You said it'd be
So
northeast of you.
Gillette, yeah. So Gillette, you keep going over the Bighorn Mountains, and it's probably good about 3 hour drive, maybe two and a half, roughly. Keep heading east, and you'll
Sure.
drop into Gillette. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Well, let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Big Bear. What is your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Oh, I saw that question. You sent those to me, and I was thinking about this. I don't maybe have little ones here and there. I don't know if necessarily any big per se. I probably looking back, I think about my time at BYU, and I always think, oh, if I would have, at that time I was working full time, going to school full time, and trying to play football, half the day. So I wasn't a scholarship kid at all, and I wish I would have. Probably a little regret in the back of my mind is I wish if my ankle hadn't have been messed up, I wish I would have finished out my 2 more years of BYU playing football. I really missed that. I had great a lot of good relationships, a lot of great friends coming out of there. I still do today, but I wish I would have stuck that out a little bit longer. But that's probably my only biggest thing, I think, in terms of regrets for life. My personality is such, I don't try to dwell upon those too much at all. But if I had to pinpoint one thing, that was probably it. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, talk for a minute now about your 33 years at Dixie. So it's got to be 10 or so as a teacher, the next
Yeah.
maybe 9 or 10 as the AD
Yeah.
teacher, and then what, the last at least 15 years or more
Yeah.
as the AD vice principal.
Yeah. So yeah, how that broke down is yeah, 17 years as teaching, and then the last 15 or so, whatever, has been as VPAD. Teaching's great. If you know anything about Dixie High School, St. George area, of course, we're the original school here
Right.
in area. Major, major, major amount of tradition here at Dixie High, and as a staff, we try to hold to those traditions. A lot of I really can't go into much detail about all the things that goes on here, but we have a lot of things that we do throughout the year. And I was incorporated in that. When I came here, I thought, wow, this is really cool to be part of Dixie High School. So consequently, we don't have a lot of turnover in faculty. In fact, we only have one faculty leaving this year, moving on to a different job, but we don't have a lot of turnover. So once you get here, you want to stay for sure. And it's been awesome. It's been great. And
Let me
teaching's been
ask
fantastic. Yeah, those type of things.
let me ask you a related question. This wasn't on the list I sent you. So how did the high school get rid of all this wokeness, change the name thing? Because obviously I still call it Dixie, the college.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
refuse to call it Utah Tech. I
I know.
guess I'm old school, but so my
Yeah,
question is they had all this hubbub, whatever you want to call it,
yeah.
but the high school just everybody's fine with the high school. It was just the university had to change its name.
And it
Explain
changes
that to our listeners.
well, and I'll say this in tongue in cheek a little bit. That's a whole other topic, obviously, Hutch. You know that too. But um, I think going forward, I think the college felt that they needed to be more inclusive of everything else. But there's such a strong tradition, and not to get too much in the history of Dixie itself, they really held on to that. I think if the city or the public or whatever try to change the name of the Dixie High School to something else, oh, it then you really see the people come unglued and I'll have to say this. I have my son-in-law went to Dixie College and graduated from there, and he's from Guyana, and not to get I don't get public political here or anything like that, but and being a black young man that went to Dixie College, he's proud of that school, proud of that name, but and loves it, and it's part of his learning. But yeah, we've held on to it. It's more die in the wool, so to speak, than the college per se. But tongue in cheek, I will say in that case, in my own personal opinion, the minority ruled the majority. So that's how it got
All
changed. But that's just me saying that. So anyway.
right. Well, let's talk about the job of AD. Talk about how it's changed since you first became the AD in 2002. So this was, I think, our first conference in St. George was 98. So this was 3 or 4 years after when you
Yeah.
became the AD. So talk about from 2002 to 2025. What's the same or what's different?
I a lot of the same basis of what I've seen and done at the beginning to what I'm doing now. Um, is still there, obviously. A lot not as I look at even today, you'd think by now I'd have the UHSA handbook memorized, but I don't. I'm still looking at that all the time and looking for guidance there. But obviously, new rule changes as in athletics, adding new sports has changed since I've been here. Um, I will say, since the time I began in '92 till 22, that it's the year we're in now. Parents have changed. I'll admit that. So that's changed a little bit. I think the kids have changed them a little bit, but they're still kids. They're great kids, and we've got some as we know. I'm awestruck at the amount of the kids we've got that come through here, and every school for that matter. They're just great kids. Just need maybe a little more extra guidance that way. In terms of athletic director job itself, I would say it's still doing the same thing, day in, day out. I haven't seen anything drastic change other than maybe, no more grass. We for football, it's turf, which is great. And I'm not spending 6 hours to get ready for a game, painting the field, that's nice. But so those type of things have changed. Yeah.
Let me ask you another question off the record or off what I sent you before.
Yeah.
So St. George, I can remember. So this goes way back in the late '80s when I was still coaching girls basketball, and I remember bringing my team down playing um, Dixie, and then the next day would play Pineview.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Snow Canyon was the second school built there, and then Pineview.
Yes.
But now, since then, now you've got Desert
Yeah.
Hills. Now you've got Crimson Cliffs. Is there going to be another one in the next couple of years? What's that look like, Washington County? It's so crazy big now.
Yeah, they just got then, as you know, not was it 2 years ago, they opened up our vocational high school, which has 800 kids in it. So,
Mhm.
um, and those kids play wherever boundaries they live in is where they play sports at. But yeah, there's talk. I will say the growth has tapered off a little bit, but there is still growth, and there's talk about out between Crimson Cliffs on your way to Herc and out in that area. I think there's some trust lands out that area that's potential for another high school down the road. But as the growth is right now, Hutch, I think we're probably at least 5 or 6 or maybe 7 years away from another high school. In my own personal opinion. Now, obviously things can change. I mean, it's tough for housing right now, especially for young married couples down
Right.
here. And it's I think the school district is probably one of the higher terms of occupation for jobs in this area, and it's tough right now for definitely both spouses have to work, obviously, but yeah, it's tough to live in this area, especially if brand new trying to find a home. But
I
yeah,
remember, so this may have been back when Hammer was still
hmm
the principal. He told me the story. I just can't remember the year. He told me about how he hired someone like the second week in July,
yeah,
and they turned in a resignation five
yeah.
days later because they couldn't find a place to live because they couldn't afford to live there.
Oh no, that's great, and it's true. I mean, we've had a couple in my tenure in the admin departments. We're hiring teachers in the years past. It's tough if they can't find a job for their spouse, they're not coming. And we'd love to have them, but they just can't afford to come down here because the housing market is crazy. So I hope that will change a little bit. I mean, our district has brought its pay scale up somewhat. I think we're kind of in the middle of the row when it comes for the state of Utah, but we kind of need to edge towards a little higher end, in my personal opinion. But we'll see how it happens. I mean, but the growth is still happening. Maybe not as high as some other areas in Utah, but it's still taking shape there. Yeah.
Let's talk for a minute about your journey with the UIAAA. So go back to
Yeah.
2002. How did you hear about the UIAAA? How did you become involved? I know you spent some time on the ADEC, so talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I had right out of the gate, I think about 3 or 4 years into it. I spent some actually we back up a little bit before that. I was the president of the UDITSIA, the Utah Driver Education Association, for a number of years too. So I was part of that organization. Had a great time with the driver's ed teachers back in the day. And but yeah, as when I became AD, about oh heavens, I try to remember it's just about my fourth or fifth year in, they that I can't remember. I think it was Coach Hodson from Caneview was
Mhm.
maybe he was on NADAC. I think he was on NADAC possibly. But anyway, I
Right.
stepped in there. Yeah, oh no, it was Ren Hoops, I think I replaced, if I remember right. And so anyway, I did that for 6 years, had a wonderful time, great association, loved UIAAA, a lot of good things and rubbing shoulders with everybody there and great friendships there. or associates. So I'm grateful to be part of it. They're very helpful in helping us be good ADs. I mean, that's important. I'm solely sold on making sure you get, take all your courses and classwork to do that and move on from there. But yeah, great organization. Love it. And it's helped, like I say, it's helped me out. If I need to find a game or call up somebody or whatever, I can easily go there and get help that way. So yeah.
Talk for a minute about the conference because, well,
Yeah.
I assume because everybody's younger than me in the association now. I don't know if anybody remembers before we moved. It's always been in St. George as long as you've
Yeah.
been around, but you've been a help because you're right there. Helped us
Yeah.
in the early years with audio visual stuff. Talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. All that. This year I brought over, was it Missy, whoever needed some cornhole things, or I brought them over here. But no,
Right.
I'm a full part of that. Been part of that. Those conferences have been great. And I think the only year that we had to go up north to COVID is the only year we didn't. I personally haven't been here in St. George, so no, I can't stress enough to the UI to the athletic directors out there who might be hearing this podcast. Make sure you attend those conferences. Great source, great venue, a great venue, obviously, but also a great place to get know some of the vendors and make some connections there. Things you need is to be a good athletic director. So yeah.
Very good. Let me ask you this. What's one common myth about being an athletic director that you'd like to debunk to the general public?
Common myth. I don't, oh heavens, I don't know. Common myth. Maybe athletic directors don't know anything and don't, I don't think people know we do stuff. But obviously, as you know how the old adage is, until you walk in a person's shoes, you don't really know what they do. But yeah, the athletic director, I will say this, a good athletic director is nonstop from sun up to sundown. There's something going on. If I kept and then I always kick myself, I need to keep a more detailed personal journal. Each day is totally different from the day before, and tomorrow will be totally different from today. So it's something that's kind of a nice thing about it. It's not a stagnant job. I mean, you're really doing something different each and every day. So that's one thing about this job. You should never get bored from it at all by any means. More stress than anything else, but boredom, yeah. But I don't know if there's a myth per se. I think a lot of things, athletic directors know a lot about sports, really. If they're heavily involved in athletics, they know a lot about all different sports. And quite frankly, I think all of us athletic directors, if we went back to coaching, would be probably the best coaches because we know what's going on
Mm,
all around. So if we got jump back in the coaching thing,
that's
so.
well said. What's the favorite part of your job, Big Bear?
I just love being with the kids and the staff that I've got here at the high school, and also we have a pretty cool thing down here, I think, in terms of our athletic directors here in Region 9. We're really tight knit, and we're literally texting everybody. We're in a texting group. Somebody's always blasting out something every day. We're joking, having fun. I think it's kind of our stress relief some way or another, but that's probably the best thing, just being with the kids. I thoroughly love coming in here every day. I'm never like going, oh crap, I don't want to go to school today. No, I'm just totally opposite. I can't wait to get here. So no, yeah, it's great. It's great being here, being with the kids, being our admin team is outstanding. Our vice principal's a head tennis coach for a lot of years. Boys and girls are Warren Brooks, who's well known down this area. Him and I coached football back in the day here at Dixie High School, and he went to Snow Cane for 26 years. So our admin team is outstanding. So that helps a lot when it comes to having a cohesiveness in that area. And we joke a lot. That's why I keep telling my wife, I can't leave this job. I'm having way too much fun. I don't want to leave. So anyway.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. Let's finish up with a couple of questions. The first being, you've got two suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator that need to follow Big Bear's suggestions in order for them to become a success. What would your two suggestions be?
Well, I was thinking about that. That's a great question, Hutch. Thanks for bringing that up. And I thought, and I bet other athletic directors would say probably the same thing or close to it. But the first thing come out and say is just create great relationships. And under that heading, number one, be good friends with your custodians. That's huge. Have an awesome secretary. Annette Vest is outstanding. She keeps me just moving right along. She's outstanding. And also other secretaries who do a fabulous job here. So those two things, and like I already mentioned, our admin team are very supportive. We're all former athletes, all former coaches. That's big. So if you have those three things, and then on top of that, add that right below that is also hopefully as a new AD, please make sure your wife is on board if you're married or your spouse or your significant other, because obviously it's going to take time away from her or him or whatever it might be and your kids. So make sure they're all on board. Now, luckily, my wife was a former all-star athlete out of Idaho, so she knows all about athletics. She's raised an athletic family. Our kids are all I'm a huge multi-sport AD, and all my kids played multiple sports, and so we were all in it together from day one. But that helped me a lot. But I've seen ADs where their spouse is like going, "Oh, why are you doing this? Or why are you doing that?" And it's tough. It's tough. So I think those are kind of two things there. Those two big things right there. The great relationships you have, and then it makes sure your family's on board helping you. So
Those are great suggestions. Thanks so much for sharing that. We'll finish with this. Big
yeah.
Bear, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
I'm glad you didn't ask about money. You're not gonna get paid much. We all know that. I mean, you get a lot more rewards um, in that sense. I will say this though, when it comes to education, and which athletic director is part of that, and which my wife and I are looking forward to is retirement. Now, who's to say what's going to happen in another 30 years down the road from a brand new AD coming in and taking over? But just stick it out. It's well worth it. Yeah, as you look back, the memories, the things that I've gone through from all different sports to all different situations has been absolutely outstanding. I can't replace that with anything else. Money would never replace any of that stuff. So, um, but no, it's been a great ride. I've hopefully got another year or two in me still to go, and I plan on helping. I love announcing games. I love to announce and do that type of thing. I'm sure I'll be heavily involved in the area, helping that in the area, Dixie High School, especially maybe elsewhere at the college, maybe or somewhere else. But if the Jazz would hire me as announcer, I'd love to do the Jazz. But no, but no, it's great to be. This has been a great ride. So I'm almost done. But anyway, I'll be golf with you more, Hutch.
Excellent. Well, yeah, you can't beat that. On that note, that wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Mike Bair, the Director of Athletics at Dixie High School. Big Bear, thanks so much for being on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Thanks, Hutch. Appreciate it, buddy.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.